We just got done with the month of June, the month when we honor the anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising, the historic event that marked the start of the modern movement for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, intersex, and asexual rights, better known as the LGBTQIA group across the globe. To celebrate, hundreds of pride parades will take place in every nook and cranny of the world. What started out as a humble street parade has now boomed into one of the best street parties of the year, with demonstrations, seminars, parties, marches, film festivals, concerts, parades, and more. It's like they say, there's something for everyone at Pride, and at Pride, everyone is welcome. The iconic New York City Pride March took place on Sunday, June the 30th. And this year's march holds particular significance as it marks 55 years since its inception in 1970, the very first large-scale Pride March in the world. This is why the NYC Pride March is considered an epicenter of the global LGBTQIA+ socio-political ecosystem, and is consistently North America's biggest pride parade, with an estimated 2 million attendees in 2023, forming 700 parade blocks. It all covers about 3.5 kilometers, converting about a massive 40 city blocks into a large-scale protest and party venue. Even in India, even though the celebrations do not happen in June, the Delhi Queer Pride Parade has seen growing participation, with estimates of around 12,000 attendees in 2023 since its landmark inception in 2008. Typically taking place in November, it starts at Barakhamba Road and concludes at Jantar Mantar, covering a significant portion of central Delhi. The event culminates at Jantar Mantar, where more speeches and performances take place emphasizing the ongoing struggle for the LGBTQ+ rights in India. Now, there is something interesting that is common between all these events. Something that has nothing to do with their theme or occasion at all. It is the relationship between these large-scale events by the people, for the people, and the urban spaces that enable these events. In other words, all these marches, as well as various other processions globally, are great examples of how public spaces in the city that may otherwise have been for a different purpose are reclaimed by the people for the dual purpose of celebration and dissent. By occupying central and significant parts of their respective cities, these marches create a sense of belonging and visibility for the LGBTQIA+ community. These events transform urban landscapes into vibrant arenas for celebration where participants can express joy, solidarity, identity, and cultural pride. Simultaneously, these events serve as platforms for dissent, advocating for legal and social changes, and bringing attention to ongoing injustices. In essence, they showcase the transformative power of public spaces when viewed from the narrative of urban commons, a dynamic interplay of various factors. First, inclusivity and access. Public spaces also need to be designed as democratic spaces that are inclusive of all and help foster a sense of cooperation, unity, and peace in society. The public spaces must allow people to experience the aspects of the city they are rightfully entitled to. By reclaiming public spaces, Pride events ensure that these urban areas are accessible and inclusive, reflecting the diverse identities within the city. This transforms often exclusive or commercialized spaces into ones that celebrate diversity and foster community. Second, collective identity and empowerment. These events empower marginalized communities by providing a platform for visibility and expression. The shared use of public spaces helps build a collective identity and sense of belonging amongst the participants. Third, advocacy and activism. The use of these commons for Pride events highlights the role of public spaces in advocacy and dissent. These marches are not just celebrations, but also powerful acts of protest, demanding recognition and rights for the LGBTQIA+ community. Fourth, temporal reappropriation. Temporarily transforming public spaces for these events shows how cities can be reimagined and repurposed to serve the needs of their residents, emphasizing the potential for urban environments to adapt and to reflect social movements and community needs. Now, it is worth noting that while there is great social and financial traction for these events today, they were not as widely supported during their early years. The state was rarely an active player in enabling these protests. Rather, in many cases, would oppose it. In many of these countries, laws state that while there is a freedom to protest, they should be carried out in designated areas only, and not through the occupation of public spaces. This veils for the control over the very nature of dissent spaces. So, as radical as it might sound, what these protest movements and many others in the past have shown is the ability of large groups of people to self-organize over shared values, leading to the occupation and the temporary reclaiming of city streets in urban commons, despite legislative pressures against it. This reclamation also highlights how the inequitable distribution of the city's public spaces might devoid certain communities the opportunity to form their own commons for community welfare or even voicing dissent. When people share streets and squares, it often brings them near each other, but not necessarily into direct interaction. So by allowing urban spaces to become flexible and productive through collective projects and cultural practices, we can diversify the types of public spaces beyond those focused solely on consumption. Future cities might be able to reorganize themselves around sustainable public life models that involve cooperative efforts. This shift is what is already evident in public areas that accommodate these pride marches. When they are looked at through the lens of the urban commons, we can appreciate how they not only celebrate LGBTQIA+ identities, but also reclaim and democratize urban spaces, making cities more inclusive and reflective of their diverse populations. In the end, we need to remember that much like our society, our cities are unequal and often anonymous. The commons are where people get to know each other, feel familiar, and learn to collaborate. This is where the barriers between our origins and identities often dissolve, much like how sunlight dissolves into a rainbow. Such is the joy urban commons enable, and why it is so essential to show them some love, just like we would to a friend, a partner, to family, regardless of their identity. As they say, love is love. We hope you had a wonderful Pride Month.